finally understand where I've always gone wrong. Quitting smoking. I've tried to do it several times now. Each time has ended in failure. I've definitely not given it a full effort, let's say. I wish I could say that I committed myself fully, but every time the opportunity to get out of the situation came up, I just crumbled, basically. Having access, since I'm a vapor, to the higher nicotine substances made it so that I kept relapsing, and without having my partner trying to quit at the same time, I found myself presented with stressful situations that then made it so I would inadvertently refill my vape sometimes intentionally with the higher nicotine, starting the cycle all over again. Realizing now that I'm alone, what would help? I find that, oh man, Mr. Fly, go away. Now, where was I? On my own, I find that I need something to fidget with. That I believe where I was going wrong the entire time was not providing a replacement for the habit. That I was potentially, despite using several different means, I've tried the gum, the patch, and going cold turkey. And despite replacing the substance essentially with the patch, I still found that the habit was more of a burden than I was prepared to deal with. As a result of that, I've kind of dove deeper into the research of neurodivergence and discovered what stimming was. It's essentially how I ended up at the question of, am I neurodivergent? So before I managed to really get through any of that, I started trying to use Stim twice. Things like your spinner devices and all of that. And you got your little... But I'm wondering what would be the best for the exact purpose of quitting smoking, for I don't find those things to be ultra stimulating when faced with the pressures of addiction. So I'm considering whether or not I should purchase one of those fume type devices. Has anyone had any experience with them? Is there alternatives? What is your feedback? I'd love to know in the comments. Also considering whether or not going old school. So I remember when my uncle was quitting smoking, he was using a toothpick. I've seen several people with toothpicks in their mouth recently, so I've been wondering where to pick up a pack of the flavored ones. That would be interesting. So possibly 2 tools to be able to use that are relative to the actual habit of taking, a vape and putting it to your mouth, which then, if you're filling in that habit with something that then doesn't produce the same response, eventually your body will unlearn that as a means of getting dopamine, because that's essentially what the addiction is. It's just a means of providing dopamine at the same time as the relief from the addiction itself and the withdrawal symptoms. So that's like the withdrawal symptoms are actually a response to your body wanting more of the dopamine. So as like an ADHD person, it kind of just compounds the problem. So myself not having an appropriate diagnosis, running with self-diagnosis and what seems to help, I am bringing in the tools that have been useful. So, you see I'll rock back and forth constantly. It seems to help. Fidget and, have a hard time with even looking at a camera because, that's just something that I'm supposed to do and somewhere I'm supposed to look, and the eye contact relevant to it. So, let's try eliminate as many of the complications for this leg of the quitting smoking, and number 1 will be filling my hands with something that doesn't provide nicotine. Everyone should be aware by now that there's multiple different levels to the vape. You got your top tier nicotine salts, higher dosages, and then you got your lower tier where you get into your what they call freebase, and you can essentially step yourself all the way down to just about 1, I believe, although there's no companies that are currently offering the low doses. There's the gray area in the BC policy on how much nicotine they're allowed to have and the flavors that it can be in. So you can have 0.01 nicotine currently, although it seems they're looking to work away from allowing that in any flavors. You can't specifically have 0 in a flavor, only in tobacco flavors. And beyond, I believe it is 3 milligrams, you can't find the flavors at all. So my current flavors being some sort of fruity menthol, I'm going to have to likely switch to a 0.01 fruity menthol from the 3 milligram. So it'll be a big jump, but I am currently on the 10 milligram, have been for 2 weeks. My next step down is after this bottle, so probably partway through the week, I'll be stepping down to either a 5 or a 6, depending on what brand has what available. And then from there, after that bottle, down to the 3, and from there looking at ensuring I have my Stim toys in place and stepping down off of the 3 milligram down to 0.01 and trying to phase the habit out at the same time. So that's where the Stim toy that goes. As you can see, I got my hands are crossed, so I'm not waving them around and trying to touch my face. I'm not sure what to do with them, because if I do anything other than that right now, I'm going to be all over the place, which will interrupt my ability to look at the camera, although it might make it easier to think and talk. So back to the point. With the Stim toys in place, I should be able to get off of nicotine, and that is ultimately where I keep coming back to how I went wrong every time, and that maybe if I had Stim toys in place, the previous situations might have been easier to handle, and potentially even may have better handled the situations between me and my partner. Asking myself the question, why now? Can only really think that I'm finally in a place that's calm enough that I can relax when needed and not feel pressured to have to smoke. It's ultimately what it comes down to. That I need the calm environment to be able to do it. Without the calm environment, I can't regulate. If I can't regulate, then I search for things that help me to regulate, and often I end up going outside, which then outside leads to trying to work on the breathing practices that essentially reinforce part of the need of the smoking and the habit, because I do tend to take a moment and reflect on my breath between calls on the vape while I'm out smoking, taking a moment to myself. So if I have a calm enough environment such as this, I mean, it's a gorgeous little suite I got here, freshly renovated. I have my little office all set up the way I want, you know. I don't got a dog, but I got the dog bed there waiting for when I can have a dog up here, or when my landlord's dog comes and joins me, which I absolutely love. And the cat comes in through the portal, so we got the one up here, but I got one over yonder that actually opens up all the way. Winston will come through every once in a while, so it feels as if the animals have made this home for me, and it's quiet. Yes, the family's not here right now, so there's the noise downstairs from the family, but that's like family activity. It's a warm, vibrant noise, not a disruptive, uncomfortable uncomfortable noise. Despite it being activity, I think the level of separation I have here doesn't make it intrusive for me. So, beautiful place, wonderful view out my window, and for the first time in my life, I actually have a place to call my own. As the final note, I should talk about how I started smoking in the first place. It's not your usual, I guess, especially since I didn't start smoking. I started vaping. Going back to when I was living on Salt Spring Island, I had a doctor that got me into working on breathing practices. And as a means of helping reinforce the breathing practice, he suggested I try vaping. Much to my surprise, several years later, I had the opportunity presented to me under the same guise by one of my friends. This friend, also being a coworker, happened to encourage me to start vaping, and doing so reinforced the breathing practice, which did seem to help, although the two of them combined made it nearly impossible each time I've tried so far to quit smoking, as when I utilize the breathing practice, I feel like I should have a smoke, and when I feel like I want to smoke, I end up reinforcing the breathing practice. Had it not been for that original doctor to put the idea in my head, I don't think that when it was presented to me a second time, I would have taken him up on the opportunity or the option. As it was presented to me, it was kind of an opportunity to free myself from the anxiety that I felt relative to not getting a dopamine response from the practices being provided. So yeah, brain hacking myself into addiction to reinforce an appropriate desired behavior. I don't know that I realized what I was doing while I was doing it. Although looking back now, I can see how on many situations I did use the going out for a smoke as a reward for achieving something. But as time progressed, the reward started to dwindle and the addiction took over, and I'm left in a position where there really isn't much benefit to continuing the practice for any reason. So, although it was beneficial, it was definitely not a long-term solution. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know what your favorite Stim toy is for quitting smoking, if you've been through the process and found one that helped specifically, even your favorite. Whatever it was, any of your old school hacks, what did you find helpful? Was it just gum? Or as I'm thinking, possibly the combination of the fidget device, such as a fume, and some flavored toothpicks. Till next time, much love.